Good morning.
I am Bhairavi Desai, Executive Director of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. And Commissioners, I would like to inform you that in the overflow room, there are over 50 drivers that are watching this hearing on the big screen. You can actually hear many of them clapping when you're in the hallway. There are over 50 drivers that are standing outside. We were not able to get everybody up in here. I do just want to say, for the record, we saw many people in suits that were able to get up here, but it seemed to be the drivers that got stopped and were asked to wait.
They cannot come. They are stated by the critical driver program.
So it is unbelievable to imagine. It took us 8 years to get a raise. It has taken the fleets less than 8 months to come back here and plead poverty to you all. Please do not believe these lies. These rules are absolutely horrendous. If they are passed, they will be economically disastrous for thousands and thousands of drivers. This is a really hefty rules package. There's 12 different points. I've already submitted to you in writing a detailed response to each one. So I will really try to make this brief, especially so drivers can come up here and testify themselves. First of all, the rule that says that the repairs should be passed on to the drivers. I mean, this is absolutely absurd. You're paying for, when you lease from a garage, in the 40 years of leasing, garage leases always took care of repairs and maintenance. Drivers who lease from a garage pay at a higher lease than any other drivers in the industry. And the value of that lease has always included not just maintenance and service, but also the repair costs. And just to give you an idea, if a night shift driver on a hybrid is paying $141 on the lease, plus $4.77 tax, sales tax, that's $145.77 they're paying in total, plus they're paying for fuel. Now, the amount of money the garages are already paying, they have to cover for liability. I mean, there are state insurance requirements here that go beyond the TLC. What they're trying to do is say, in cases where they can hold the driver responsible, that they can make the driver pay for those damages directly. In other words, in any accident, drivers will have to pay up front for the repairs. It could be the side view mirror is broken, which could be a couple $100. We have examples of drivers that are facing bills of up to $11,000. We have a member who got a bill for $16,000. These cars are insured, but the garages don't want the insurance to pay for it, when instead they can force the drivers to pay that money out of pocket. This is it's insane. They've already crushed our rights as workers. Now they're seeking to crush our rights, basic rights as consumers. I mean, the insurance is already there. We don't get to choose the insurance policy. Many of the garages are self-insured. Many of them have their own repair shops. Imagine if your boss said to you, yeah, I have insurance, but on certain accidents, you're going to pay up front, and you're going to pay me so my mechanic can work on these repairs. I mean, this just reeks of, fraud and real economic abuse. It will cost them maybe $2 a shift to have full coverage on these vehicles. Instead of paying $2 out of the $145 that they're collecting from a driver, they would rather put the driver at economic risk and harm and pay up to $16,000 out of pocket? That's completely unconscionable. And we beg of you, do not pass this regulation. For 40 years, we have not had to pay for repairs. That should not change. Weekly drivers. Imagine you work 12-hour shifts. Imagine when you're a weekly driver, you're working on average 6 shifts a week. As a result, you'll be charged a weekly rate, which adds up to the 6 busiest shifts of the week. So one shift, you're supposed to be quote-unquote credited. And financially, that's how the numbers work out, right? Well, if this rule's passed, what it will mean is that the weekly driver will either have to pay for that 7th shift out of pocket, which is an extra $20 per shift for the 6 days they work, which I assure you, members of the commission, is not small change for a working taxi driver, even with the new fare rates. Or they're going to have to work a 7th shift. Would you tell someone you employ to work 7 days of a 12-hour shift? Because that's basically those are the choices. You either pay out of pocket, you lose that extra income, or you work yourself to the bone working an extra shift. I thank you, Commissioner Yaski, for giving me the extra time. The other rules. On the credit cards, again, you just passed regulations where the market will finally get opened up. We already know Square has said for processing they would charge $2.75. There are going to be other vendors that come in that are going to be charging less in processing fees. On one hand, the processing rates for the owners are coming down, but on the other hand, with these rules, drivers are expected to pay more. It's completely unfair. Why would we have to pay more when the owners are getting to pay less? And just because credit card usage, so the number or percentage of passengers that might be paying the fare using a credit card, thank you. Just because that percentage might be going up does not mean that drivers are getting some fare increase. It doesn't mean that their overall income is going up. It doesn't mean that their revenue is going up. Yet, what the fleets basically want is the right of every 6 months, based on this review, of an overall average, for that amount, that lease amount to go up automatically. Your rules state that it would be an automatic adjustment. It doesn't even say that there would be another public hearing to review the impact of raising the lease in relation to the credit card fares. What should be done is, if the fleets are not satisfied with the current scenario, then fine. Give up their right to be our merchant account holder. Let drivers choose their own merchant account holder.
Yes, Ms. Siam, I recognize that this is these are serious rules, and there are a lot of them, and they're intricate, and so there's a lot to talk about here. I don't want to limit you to the 3-minute time.
Thank you.
Given that you represent the parties and interest here, and there's a lot to discuss. At the same time, I'd ask you to take maybe just a couple more minutes and cover the most important points.
Absolutely, yeah. $10,000 penalty right now for retaliation. The TLC has a lease caps enforcement unit. I'm sure their prosecutors can tell you how difficult it is for drivers to come forward and file a complaint of an overcharge. We know firsthand. We've had so many drivers come to us. I will be submitting this to the commission. It's too bad that Mr. Gerber left, because one of the garages in his trade association, look at this, and I will pass this around to you. This is a receipt that says that the driver is being charged for the Health and Disability Fund. The TLC has not even authorized that yet. And drivers are already, this individual was charged, for that fund. In addition, they were charged $49 for something called the shift excess fee. This has been going on for years now. And the late charge that Chairman Yaski was talking about, if the driver returns late to the garage, you're right, Commissioner Yaski, it's the next shift driver that gets penalized. But guess what? The late penalty doesn't go to that next shift driver, it goes to the garage. And what this particular garage has been doing is charging every driver something called a shift excess fee. The GPS record will show you these were drivers who returned to the garage on time at the end of their 12-hour shift. There are already so many rampant overcharges, members of the commission, and to reduce the penalty for retaliation from $10,000 to $1,000 makes it even more likely that garages will keep that upper hand and make it more difficult for drivers to come forward and file complaints. And in all my 17 years in this industry, I have never heard of a time where a penalty against a driver was lowered, by the way. You have another rule where the owners could pass along certain owner summonses onto the drivers. I mean, if you really want to be charitable, fine. Get rid of those rules. But why allow the owners to pass the cost onto the drivers? When those rules and those penalties were promulgated, I'm sure the TLC took into consideration the owner's revenue because these were penalties on the owners. So for you to allow the owners to pass those costs onto the drivers is completely absurd. It's not fair, and it's not, you know, it's not in principle of when those rules were first passed and those penalties were first established. Lastly, I will speak on the fact that, you know, the fleets would like the requirement of the evaluation of the amount of revenue necessary to generate a fair and reasonable rate of return to a medallion owner. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. We don't even understand the legality of this, certainly not the morality of it. I mean, drivers should be guaranteed a livable income. That should be within your policy. That should be the priority. It is their blood and their sweat and their labor that generates that revenue. I am not saying, therefore, that the fleets and agents are not necessary. I mean, that would be we don't take that position. That would be preposterous. They're in the industry. We all coexist within this industry. But what you are doing, members of the commission, if you pass these rules and regulations, you are sending a glaring message to every single driver, to every single member of this industry, that the fair raise was only meant for us to have a livable income for basically a couple of months. And the big fleets with their money, with their lawyers, can go to court or can go lobbying, and they can come in and take that raise right from under our feet. I don't know of any fleet owner that has filed for bankruptcy, but I know many drivers that live on the border. Please think of them. If these rules pass, it will be economically disastrous for thousands and thousands of taxi drivers. And we ask you to take pause and reject these rules. Thank you.
Thank you.
Drivers that you represent as employees and the fleets as employers. Are you talking about the traditional employee-employer relationship where there's a W-2, or are you really referring to independent contractors?
Oh no, Commissioner Carone, thank you for the clarification, because I'm very clear that the drivers are indeed independent contractors because they get no employee benefits like paychecks and Social Security contribution and the right to health care and retirement and paid time off. So we're very clear that the fleets know that drivers are not employees because we have none of the benefits of an employee. The point that I actually was making, sir, was that for you all to imagine, because I imagine that some of you who have businesses, you do have employees. And so in that relationship where you as a boss control the livelihoods of the workers, in that scenario, it is comparable because the actions of the fleets combined with the regulations of the TLC, that does control the livelihoods of the drivers. And so that's the comparison that I was making.
Or you can call us yellow slaves.
Slaves!
All right. You know, I'm going to ask, please, people in the audience to let the witness speak and question, answer, go forward, and please do not shout out like that.
Commissioner Yaski, if I may just say, I know that in the written comments I had noted that, for example, we have a member who's given a bill for $11,000, and another member recently had gotten a bill for $16,000 for repairs. And also I should say that this was immediately when the accidents first took place. So even your rules say that if another party compensates the fleet, then they have to give that money back to the driver. But I hope you understand that means basically the working driver is now acting as like a lender, putting the money up front to the fleet. And commissioners, we do have copies of those receipts as well as other receipts that clearly evidence overcharges. And I will be following up and submitting those copies to you.
Just one follow-up question. Thank you for your answer on the employee question. Do you have with you mentioned before this from a particular garage? I don't see that on here. Do you have that as well?
I mean, I will submit that to the chairperson's office, but because I did not want to reveal the name of the individual at the purposes of a public hearing, that's why. Because see, retaliation is a tremendous concern for drivers, even at a $10,000 penalty. So imagine if you reduce it to $1,000.
Yeah, I do want to assure you, Commissioner Crone, I haven't looked at that particular one, but in the year and some that we have had now a police cap enforcement unit, a small unit, but one person, but nonetheless a unit. We've assessed and collected, I guess, some $110,000 in fines for overcharges and secured about $50,000 in restitution to drivers who have been overcharged. And I guess I have 2 points I'm trying to make. One is, is there overcharge activity out there? Absolutely. And we are addressing it. I am sure there's more to do. In fact, I know there is. We have had a couple of driver complaints from, I believe, the same medallion owner that I'm guessing that this is for, because it was the same two types of charges. That's an active investigation, and we have maybe 100 at the moment. Active investigations. So that is absolutely part of our day-to-day business here. Yes, please.
So I have the receipt in front of me. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I see that there is a surcharge for a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Is that customary in garages to charge a surcharge?
Yes, it's within your rules. It's within your rules. They just, in your regulations, so for example, if it's a day shift, non-hybrid is $115, and then hybrid is $118. So the garage may have listed like $3 as the hybrid surcharge separately.
This is $42.
Right, so...
Weekly, that would be
right,
for the weekly for
right.
course.
I'm also struck by the enormous number of credit card transactions on this one shift.
Mm-hmm.
I guess credit cards have become the preferred way to pay for cabs now.
Exactly, and that's part of why, Commissioner Wanshall, it's really concerning to us that, so usage is going up, right? But at the same time, you've opened up rules where now the owners they're going to have more, vendors to choose from, and their processing costs are actually going to come down. Yet, they want you to pass a rule where based on usage going up, not on cost of processing going up, but on usage going up, that, we would have to pay more on the lease. That is fundamentally unfair. We don't choose what form the passenger will use to make that payment, right? And by us accepting a credit card payment, which in fact means the driver's cash flow gets affected because you have to wait longer to get your money back. On top of that, we're now going to get penalized by the garages who want to basically charge us more on the lease. And really, I would really say to you, if they think the current version of the rules is not a solution, if we're too much of a burden to process for, set us free. Let us choose our own processor. Let the drivers be their own merchant account holder. Drivers, I mean, to give you an example, commissioners, you know, the Taxi Workers Alliance, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We recently became a merchant account holder, and we have drivers, you know, who can be authorized under our master agreement to be sub-merchants. And we pay, so when members pay their dues to us, you know, and by a credit card, it will now be 1.8%. With our small volume compared to the volume in taxis, where you can imagine how much of a lower rate they could bargain for. And so if the fleets don't want to do that, fine. Give it up. Let us choose our own merchant account holder. Let us pay those rates. Drivers can easily become authorized to be merchant account holders themselves, or they can certainly identify others who are willing to be the master merchant account holders for them.
Can I just ask on this, because this is something I've tried, you know, to grapple with in my own head. How mechanically could we make that work, given that a fleet vehicle is used by, you know, 3 or more drivers over the course of, I mean, minimum 3 over the course of a year, probably any given vehicle 5 or 8, if not many, many more. That would be the minimum, really. So, literally, how could we mechanically implement what you're talking about? Uh-oh.
That's the expert. So, well, you know, Commissioner Yaski, I mean, in other parts of the country, they are doing that. I mean, well,
probably more of an owner-driver. I don't want to interrupt. But probably that's more of an owner-driver model. I'm just guessing.
I mean, that's interesting, but because actually, I mean, the cities I'm thinking about, it's actually where the drivers still are lease drivers. You know, I mean, a couple of ways. I mean, one would be, there's the actual technology, right? I mean, you don't have to have the reader in the back. People could have, people could even, you know, like with the smart payments, there could be an application on your phone with a smart payment application, and that would be linked to a driver's direct account, and that money could be processed through there. You know, and I mean, remember that when drivers log in, you know, they do, into the system, they do have to log in using their hack number. So already, in a way, that system is individualized. And we're talking about, these are wireless transactions, right? We're just talking about some computer coding. And I mean, there's, you know, Mr. Thaler really is an expert in the room who could, could share with you I'm sure the technological means. But this is being done in other parts of the country, and, you know, we would be happy to share more details with you, both in terms of the technology as well as the different, you know, wireless methods. But, Commissioner, yes. Oh, yes, ma'am.
No, I do want to chew that, John. I mean, I think that the reality is that the TPEP system that gets the credit cards into the cars also generates all this data for us, and the credit card revenue, in some sense, subsidizes some of the other functions that the TPEP provides. And I say not to say that what you're suggesting is impossible, but it does need to be thought through,
well,
at least by me. So I don't want to delay you here, but
there is advertising revenue. I mean, there are other ways that the fleets recover that money. So it's not just in the, the credit cards.
Right.
There's other streams they have.
Thank you.
I don't want to hold it for this, but I do have a question. When you were talking about retaliation.
Microphone.
Forgive my ignorance.
Sure.
What form does the retaliation take? I just have no concept of what that would look like.
Sure. So, couple of different ways. I mean, one would be where you're removed from the car, right? And so you can no longer, You know, I mean, if you are a DOV driver and so you've entered into a contract with the agent, you've made a lot of payments toward that vehicle, right? And if you're retaliated against, so they could remove that medallion off that car, which makes your car completely useless, and you're out of your investment. And, we have a member in the audience right now, Emmanuel Khan, who I informed Commissioner Yaski and his staff about this, I believe on Monday, where he was at an agent's office and he was assaulted. I mean, they went to remove the medallion early before the contract had expired, and he just paid for inspection for that vehicle over $2,000. So, well, give me back my car or give me the cost of that, you know, of paying for the maintenance, for the inspection preparation. And anyway, an argument broke out, and this I heard from his partner who was in the room, and basically two of the owners went toward him. He said, "Don't touch me." They said, "We're not touching you." Went behind him and pulled out the chair. He fell to the ground. We were in the hospital with him. He was in the hospital till about midnight that night.